Hello guys and welcome to my Fire Crusader guide. In this guide I will show you how you can play your Crusader with a fire build in Torment difficulties up to Torment 6. I will just show you my Crusader and how I play him and how I geared him. Of course this is not the cookie cutter way to do it. There's always many ways to reach the goal what you want to achieve. So yeah, just use my guide as it says guideline. So we can start with the gear here. My gear contains only 2 items what are really like irreplaceable for me right now, so I can play Torment 6. And that's first of all the Unity ring. I need 2 of these rings. One on my actual character and one on my follower. What that does is just splits the damage what I'm taking between me and the follower. So when I take, for example, 100 damage, I take 50 and my follower takes 50. That's good because on Torment 6 or Torment 5 even you get an enormous amount of damage, and if this is just cut in half, then yeah, you will survive very much longer. So you have one on you and one on your follower, so all the damage is split between you and your follower. The second item what's irreplaceable for me is the legendary Templar relic, what makes my follower basically immortal. So he takes half of my incoming damage, but he can't die from it because he's like immortal from this relic. You need these 3 items to be able to farm Torment 6 in a good way, so you won't die like in every second mob group. The rest of the Templar items I'll just leave behind. Just one item is very nice to have. It's the Ass of Jordan, or Johan as it's called in Diablo 3 now. What that does is basically give you a Templar chance to put all enemies in range towards him, so you can kill them more easily. That happens every few hits what my Templar does, and yeah, it's a very great way to keep the mobs on the place, and you can kill them easier and more fast. The rest of the Templar items you can just choose as you wish, so your Templar will do maybe a little more damage. You don't have to look for toughness anymore because your Templar is basically immortal. So you can just go for pure damage. So your Templar is a little backup for you and helps you kill the mobs. So let's take a look at my Templar itself, what you should take care of and what items I use on my Templar. So what stats you're looking for in your Crusader? First of all, you want to stack as much cooldown reduction as possible to reduce the cooldowns of your skills. What's your main damage output? Second of all, you want to stack strengths because the Crusader does damage through strength. Then you want to stack all stats that give you toughness, so you will survive in Torment 5 or Torment 6 too. In my gear I have 6 items with pure fire damage increase. That will be the Mage Fist, Cinder Coat, Reaper's Wraps, Stone of Jordan, Maximus, and a random fire amulet. In my case, that gives me a total of 109% enhanced fire damage. The maximum would be 120% of 4 items, because 20% is always the maximum what you can get on an item. In addition to that, I use 2 pieces of the Arcane set, what gives me 500 strengths, what come up to 500% increased like base damage. Of course, the base damage is translated to fire damage through your skills, so that gives you an extra damage boost there. After that, I'm using the Witching Hour belt, which is the only belt with critical hit damage increase. This is a nice way to bump up your crits there. For pants, I'm using the Hammer Jammers because they give you a movement speed bonus, which is very nice to have. So you get faster from pack to pack. In addition to that, they can have an increased skill damage. I used the Punish skill damage here. I will tell you later when I go through my skills why I use that. As shoes, I use the Ice Climbers because they make you immune to the freeze and immobilize effects. That's very nice because on the higher Torment difficulties you will often meet mobs that will immobilize or freeze you, and with the Ice Climbers you're just immune to that. In addition to that, you can get on your Ice Climbers increased skill damage. Here we go with Fist of Heaven, what's the main skill, and that's very nice to have. As a shield, I'm using the Wall of Man because it gives you a chance to cast the Shield of Bones, which reduces your damage by 20% for 3 seconds. So that's nice to have for higher torments. In addition to my gear, I have an extra pair of Nemesis Bracers in the inventory. So every shrine I click, I get an extra champion pack. I use the bottomless potion of the tower because it increases your armor for a decent amount every time you're using a potion. So if you're in a situation where you anyway take a lot of damage, you can just pop a potion and you will be like increasing your armor and reducing your damage through to that too. As for the paragon points, in the core section I go with pure strength because every point in strength gives you 5% basic damage increase through all the skills. In the offense section I go with cooldown reduction because it's one of the core stats you want to look for. After that with critical hit chance to increase your overall damage. After that you can either go with critical hit chance or critical hit damage. It's basically a matter of personal preference. In the defense section you want to go with resist all for the first 50 points because in the higher torment levels you meet many elemental enemies, so that reduces the amount of damage taken. In the utility section you want to go with area damage, and after this you want to go with life on hit. If you don't have enough life on hit, or if you don't have gear what transforms your used wrath to health, you want to go with life on hit first, and after that is area damage. So let's look at the skills I use. As a rest generator I'm going with Punish with the Raw rune. Punish is a great rest generator because it gives you a higher chance to block for every time you use it, which gives you an extra survivability, and the Raw rune gives you a chance every time you block to explode and deal damage to the nearby enemies. So for the secondary skill I go with Fist of Heavens. What's my main skill, like my main damage dealer? You want to use the Heaven's Tempest rune, which transforms all damage what's made by the Fist of Heavens to transform to fire. Plus it leaves a little area underneath the place where you casted the Fist of Heaven, which is like a firestorm, which deals additional fire damage to the mobs standing in it. So that's like the main skill we are using. That's why we are using the fire gear and everything. Another very important skill is Eckhardt's Champion with the Firestarter rune. That's what's basically this build is made of, because the Firestarter rune leaves a dot on the enemy, which casts fire damage to him. And every time you hit him with fire damage, you increase the damage you're doing to him with this dot. So while you have Eckhardt's Champion on, every fire damage you will do, or even every damage you will do, will increase the damage by the Firestarter rune, and you will just exponentially increase the damage while you're on the Eckhardt's Champion. The skill Eckhardt's Champion is one of the main reasons why we are using reduced cooldown stat, because as lower as the cooldown of Eckhardt's Champion is, the more often we can cast it, and the more often we can benefit from the Firestarter rune, which is like an enormous amount of damage you will do with it. One other main damage deal skill is Consecration with the Shattered Ground rune. Basically, it's when you cast it, it leaves an area on the ground, like a circle. When you stand in it, you're healing yourself for a little amount, and it does damage through the Shattered Ground rune, and the damage is transformed to fire also. So here you're dealing fire damage too. So you're benefiting from your fire gear. The two last skills are basically matter of personal preference. I use Provoke with Hit Me, so I can get more wrath in a short amount of time. So if my Eckhardt's Champion is on and I use all my wrath, I can just use the skill Provoke, and enemies will keep attacking me, and I get another full ball of wrath to use as Fist of Heaven damage and increase the Firestarter dot. So that's a very good way to keep longer fights alive. There are two possible laws you can play with this build. I use the Law of Whaler, which increases your attack speed. When you use it, it increases the attack speed of you and your allies by even more for a short duration. With the rune Critical, which gives the Empowered Law, so when you use the law, increase critical hit damage too. So that's a great way to increase the damage output even more for you and your party. The second law you could use is Law of Justice to reduce the damage income from elemental sources. This is good as a support, so if you're like two Crusaders in a group, or your group is not that well geared, you can just use the Law of Justice with even Immovable Object or Face Armor. Immovable Object gives you more armor when you use it. And phase armor gives you and your party a bubble which decreases the damage income for 3 seconds by a large amount. So yeah, that's the two laws you could go by. I go by law of Whaler because it increases just the damage and I don't die that much in higher torments anyways. So for the passive skills for my build is Heavenly Strength, so I can use the Maximus. Vigilant, so my non-physical damage is reduced by 20%. Righteousness, so I have more wrath to work with. And Wrathful, so I'm healing myself while I'm doing damage to the enemies. So that's basically my build and my gear explained. Now I'll explain you how to play the Crusader in higher Torment levels. Welcome back guys, so now I will show you how you will actually play your Crusader. I prepared an elite pack down at the core of the area, so we will teleport there now and fight it. First skills you will pop is Consecration and Ariad's Champion, also you will empower your law. After a few seconds when your wrath is low, you will just use the skill Provoke. If the rest is again low, you will just run around to collect the health globes to fill up your wrath, or you will use Punish a few times, so you will get back on the track. So let's see. So let's swap Consecration and Ariad's Champion. Also Provoke, so they will attack me. Then just keep casting Fist of Heaven until they get down, and try to avoid the ground effects, and that's how it's done. So thanks for watching guys. If you liked the video, follow me on Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and make sure to check out my Twitch. See you later guys.